The Galaxy Council had ruled the stars for 60,000 years. 12 ancient species sat together on a world called Nexira Prime, making laws for 1,000 different races. They believed they were wise. They believed they were fair. Most of all, they believed they were powerful beyond challenge. For all those thousands of years, they were right. When their deep space sensors found radio signals coming from a small blue planet, the council was curious. A new species had learned to speak to the stars. This happened sometimes. Young civilizations would discover fire, then wheels, then rockets. Then they would send their voices into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. The council always answered. They would send their ships. They would offer protection. The young species would bow their heads and accept their place at the bottom of galactic society. This was how it had always been. This was how it would always be, or so they thought. The council sent High Speaker Vorn of the Kelix to meet these new creatures. The Kelix were proud warriors with scales like black iron and eyes like burning coals. They had conquered 200 worlds. Vorn himself had crushed rebellions on a dozen planets. He was not afraid of anything. His ship dropped out of hyperspace near the third planet from this yellow star. The humans called their world Earth. Vorn thought it was a small and ugly name for a small and ugly place. A message came through his communication system. A human voice, calm and steady, directed his ship toward a large metal station floating in orbit. The station was called Horizon. Vorn looked at it and almost laughed. It was crude, simple, built from basic metals and powered by primitive fusion reactors. These humans were children playing with toys. Admiral Taiho Kong waited for him in the station's meeting room. Taiho was a tall man with gray hair and a face that showed no emotion. He wore a simple black uniform with no decorations except for a small flag on his shoulder. Behind him stood a woman with sharp eyes and calm hands. Her name was Yuna Park, and she was Earth's voice to the stars. Vorn entered the room with 4 Kelix guards. He did not bow. He did not greet them politely. He simply sat down at the metal table and placed a datapad in front of him. "I am High Speaker Vorn of the Kelix," he said. "I speak for the Galaxy Council. You will listen." Taiho nodded once. He did not speak. Vorn smiled. He liked when the small ones stayed quiet. It made things easier. "Council has watched your species for some time," Vorn said. "You are young. You are weak. You have only one planet and a few small colonies on nearby moons. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are slow. You cannot hope to survive alone in this galaxy." He pushed the datapad forward. "The Council offers you protection. In exchange, you will do the following. First, you will destroy all of your military ships. Second, you will remove all weapons from your planet. Third, you will accept a council governor to guide your species for the next 10,000 years. After that time, if you have proven yourselves peaceful and obedient, you may be allowed to govern yourselves." Vorn leaned back in his chair. These are generous terms. Many species were not given such kindness. The room was silent. Taiho looked at the datapad but did not touch it. His face remained calm like still water. "Is that all?" Taiho asked. Vorn blinked. He had expected fear. He had expected begging. He had not expected this quiet question. "Is all," Vorn said. "You have 3 days to accept. If you refuse, the Council will send a fleet to enforce these terms. You cannot resist. You cannot hide. You cannot run. Accept our protection, and your people will live. Refuse, and you will learn why the galaxy obeys the Council." Taiho reached into his uniform and pulled out his own datapad. He placed it on the table and slid it toward Vorn. "This is humanity's response," Taiho said. "A treaty of mutual respect between equals. No governors. No weapons surrendered. We stay in our space. You stay in yours. We trade if we want. We talk if we want. But neither side commands the other." Vorn stared at the datapad like it was a dead insect. Then he laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Equals." Vorn said, "You think you are our equals. The Council commands fleets of millions. We have weapons that can crack planets open like eggs. We have ruled this galaxy since before your species learned to walk upright. And you offer us equality? He pushed the datapad back toward Taiho. You are children. You do not give terms. You receive them. Taiho picked up his datapad and put it back in his uniform. His face still showed nothing. Then Una Park stepped forward. She was smaller than Vorn, weaker than his guards, armed with nothing but her voice. But when she spoke, her words carried a weight that filled the room. "Hi, Speaker Vorn," she said. "I want you to listen very carefully. What I am about to say is not a negotiation. It is not a request. It is a warning." Vorn's smile faded slightly. "Leave our system," Una said. "Return to your council. Tell them that Earth has given you this courtesy once. We will not give it again. Any ship that enters our space with weapons ready will be destroyed. Any fleet that comes to conquer us will die. We do not want war. But if war comes to us, we will finish it." Vorn stood up so fast his chair fell backward. His guards reached for their weapons. "You dare threaten the council?" Vorn hissed. "You dare threaten me?" Una did not step back. She did not look away. "You dare," she said. "Now leave." For a long moment, Vorn stood there, his dark eyes burning with rage. He wanted to kill these humans. He wanted to burn their little station and watch their planet die. But he had his orders. He was here to deliver terms, not to fight. "You will regret this," Vorn said. "When our fleets darken your skies, you will remember this moment. You will remember that you were given a chance to survive." He turned and walked out of the room. His guards followed. Taiho watched them go. When the door closed, he let out a long breath. "Do you think they will attack?" Una asked. Taiho nodded slowly. "Yes, they have never been told no. They do not know how to hear it." Una looked out the window at the blue earth below. Clouds drifted over green lands and dark oceans. 8 billion people lived down there, going about their lives, not knowing that the galaxy had just decided to come for them. "Then we will be ready," Una said. Taiho stood beside her. His reflection in the glass looked old and tired, but his eyes were hard as iron. "We have been ready for a long time," he said. "Since the first human picked up a rock and used it to kill, we have been getting ready for this moment for 100,000 years." He turned away from the window. "They think they are coming to conquer children. They do not understand. We are not children. We are the survivors of the deadliest planet in the galaxy. And now they have made us angry." 3 days later, Vorn's ship left Earth's system. He was still laughing about the stupid humans and their foolish pride. He would not be laughing for long. 3 months passed like a slow dream. On Earth, people went to work and came home. Children went to school. Farmers grew their crops. Ships carried goods from one city to another. Life continued as it always had, but deep underground. In bunkers hidden beneath mountains and oceans, humanity's leaders were preparing for war. Defense Minister Doan Lee sat at the head of a long table in a room with no windows. The walls were made of concrete and steel, thick enough to survive a nuclear blast. Around him sat the most powerful military minds on Earth. Admiral Taiho Kong was there. So was General Sora Choi, commander of all ground forces. There were scientists, engineers, and intelligence officers. All of them were looking at a screen on the wall. The screen showed a map of the galaxy. A red line marked the path of a massive fleet moving toward Earth. 2,000 warships, Doan said quietly. 500,000 soldiers. The largest attack force ever sent against a single planet. General Sora leaned forward. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "When will they arrive?" 6 weeks, said a young intelligence officer. "Maybe 7 if they stop to regroup." Taiho shook his head. "They will not stop. They are angry. The Keelix do not like being told no." Doan looked around the table. Every face was serious, but no one looked afraid. This was strange. They were facing an enemy with better ships, better weapons, and more soldiers than Earth had people. They should have been terrified. But they were not, because they had been preparing for this moment for over 50 years. Tell me about the Silent Sentinels, Doan said. A scientist named Dr. Jiwan Han stood up. She was young, barely 40, but she had designed most of Earth's secret weapons. The asteroid belt has been armed for 30 years, she said. We placed over 10,000 automated weapons platforms in the belt. They look like normal rocks from the outside, but inside each one is a small nuclear reactor, basic targeting systems. And between 50 and 200 nuclear missiles. She changed the image on the screen. Now it showed the belt of rocks between Mars and Jupiter. When enemy ships enter the belt, the platforms will wake up. They will fire everything at once. The enemy will have no warning. No time to raise shields. No time to run. Nodded. And Mars. General Sora answered this one. We have magnetic accelerator cannons buried under the surface. They fire solid tungsten rods the size of buildings. At those speeds, even one hit will destroy any ship ever built. What about Earth itself? Taiho spoke now. The orbital stations are armed. Every satellite in orbit has been converted into a weapons platform. Our fleet is small, only 300 ships, but they are fast and they are hidden. The enemy will think they have one before they even realize we are there. Doan closed his eyes. He was an old man who had spent his life hoping for peace. But he understood something that the council did not. Peace was not given. It was taken. And humanity had been taking it from each other since the dawn of time. Very well, he said. We will give them one more chance. Send a message to the council. Tell them that their fleet will be destroyed if it enters our space. Tell them that we do not want war. Tell them that this is their last warning. The message was sent. The council received it on Nexera Prime. In the Great Hall, where 12 species had ruled the galaxy for 60,000 years, High Speaker Vorn read it aloud, and the council laughed. Some of them laughed so hard they could not breathe. The idea that these little humans could threaten them was the funniest thing they had heard in centuries. Only one. Council member did not laugh. Elder Bren of the Silith was the oldest living creature in the galaxy. His species had been ancient, when the other council races were still learning to make fire. He had watched empires rise and fall. He had seen civilizations destroy themselves in fire and blood. He had learned that the most dangerous enemy was not the one with the biggest fleet. It was the one with nothing to lose. You should listen to them, Bren said quietly. The laughter stopped. Everyone turned to look at the old Silith. His scales had faded to silver with age. His eyes were clouded, but his voice was still strong. I have studied these humans, Bren said. I have watched their broadcasts. I have read their history. They are not like us. They are not like any species the Council has ever faced. Vorn made a dismissive sound. They are primitives. They have barely left their own planet. Yes, Bren agreed. And yet they are still alive. Do you know why that is strange? Because they have spent their entire existence trying to kill each other. They invented weapons that could destroy their world before they invented ships to leave it. They have fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They have created horrors that would make our worst nightmares look like children's stories. He leaned forward, his old eyes suddenly sharp, and they survived. Every time they should have died, they found a way to live. Every time they faced extinction, they clawed their way back from the edge. They are not peaceful because they cannot be. They are violent by nature. War is not something that happens to them. It is something they are made of. The council was silent. Vorn looked uncomfortable. You are afraid of primitives, Vorn said finally. You have grown old and weak, Elder Bren. The Silith have forgotten what strength means. Bren shook his head slowly. No. I have simply learned to recognize danger when I see it. These humans are not prey. They are predators. And we are about to walk into their den. The council voted. 11 species agreed to send the fleet. Only Bryn voted against it. Fleet Commander Thera of the Mordith was given command of the armada. She was a massive creature, covered in bony plates and armed with claws that could cut through steel. Her species was the council's hammer. When someone needed to be crushed, the Mordith did the crushing. Destroy their ships, the council ordered. Occupy their planet. If they resist, make an example of them. The galaxy must see what happens to those who defy the council. Thera smiled. She had destroyed 100 worlds. Earth would simply be the next. 2,000 warships jumped into hyperspace, carrying death toward a small blue planet. On Earth, Doan Lee received word that the fleet was coming. He gathered his commanders one last time. "They have chosen war," he said. "Now we must show them what that means." Admiral Taiho stood up. His face was calm, but there was something dangerous in his eyes. "My grandfather fought in a war when he was young," Taiho said. "He told me something I never forgot. He said that other nations fought to win, but Koreans fought to survive. We learned that there is a difference between wanting victory and needing it." He looked around the room. The council wants victory. They want to add another conquered species to their collection. But we need to survive. We need to protect our families, our homes, our children. That is why we will win. Because we have no choice. Because we are fighting for everything we love.
Out.
General Sora nodded. "Then let us begin. It is time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity." The waiting was over. The war had come. The Mordath Armada dropped out of hyperspace beyond Jupiter's orbit. 2,000 warships hung in the darkness like a cloud of angry hornets. Their hulls were black as death. Their weapons hummed with enough power to crack moons in half. Fleet Commander Thera stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dominion. She looked at the distant blue dot that was Earth and felt nothing but contempt. This would be easy. This would be boring. She had hoped for a real fight, but these humans had nothing that could challenge her fleet. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Broadcast to the entire system." Her communications officer obeyed. Thera's voice echoed across the solar system, reaching every human ear. "People of Earth, I am Fleet Commander Thera of the Mordath. The Galaxy Council has ordered your submission. You have refused. This was a mistake. Your leaders have been given every chance to surrender. They chose pride over survival. Now, you will pay the price." She paused for effect. "You have 1 hour to surrender. After that, we will begin our approach. Any resistance will be met with complete destruction. Save yourselves. Force your leaders to bow, or die with them." The message ended. Thera waited. There was no response. 1 hour passed. Then 2, the humans said nothing. Their ships did not move. Their weapons stayed silent. Thera smiled. They were too afraid to even answer. Good. Fear made conquest easier. "All ships, advance," she ordered. Standard formation. We enter Earth orbit in 6 hours. The Armada began to move. 2,000 ships, arranged in perfect lines. Gliding toward the inner planets like a wave of black steel, they passed the outer moons without incident. They passed the gas giants and their frozen rings. Everything was quiet. Everything was still. Then they entered the asteroid belt, Commander said, her tactical officer. "I am reading strange energy signatures from several asteroids." Thera frowned. "Define strange?" "They appear to be powering up. Nuclear reactors of some kind. Very old design, very simple, but there are thousands of them." For the first time, Thera felt a cold whisper of doubt. She pushed it away. "Ray shields," she ordered. "Prepare for possible attack." But her words came too late. The asteroids exploded. Not with fire, but with light. Thousands upon thousands of missiles erupted from hidden platforms, screaming toward the Mordath fleet at impossible speeds. Each missile carried a nuclear warhead. Each warhead was small, but there were so many of them. The first wave hit before any ship could react. Explosions tore through the Armada. Ships vanished in balls of fire. Shields failed under the weight of 100 simultaneous impacts. 300 Mordath vessels died in the first 30 seconds. "Turn fire?" Thera screamed. "Target those platforms." Her gunners tried. They fired their massive energy beams at the asteroids, turning rocks to dust. But there were too many targets. And the missiles kept coming. The second wave killed 200 more ships. The third wave killed another 100. Thera watched her fleet burn. She had never seen anything like this. These weapons were primitive. They were crude. They were nothing compared to Council technology. But there were so many of them, and they had been waiting in the darkness for decades. Well, pull back, Thera ordered. Retreat to the outer system. The surviving ships tried to run. They turned their engines to full power and fled toward Jupiter's moons, hoping to escape the killing field. But there was no escape. The moons opened fire. Hidden cannons buried beneath ice and rock sent tungsten rods screaming through space at a fraction of light speed. Each rod was the size of a building. Each impact carried the force of a nuclear bomb. The Eternal Dominion was hit 3 times. The first rod took off its engine section. The second destroyed its weapons. The third split the great ship in half. Thera was thrown across the bridge as her flagship died around her. She survived only because of support. Beam pinned her to the floor, protecting her from the vacuum that killed the rest of her crew in orbit around Earth. Admiral Taiho Kang watched the battle on a tactical display. His flagship, the Indomitable, was small and old by Council standards. But it was fast. It was smart. It had not fired a single shot. Lieutenant Minho Beek stood beside him, reading the incoming data. 800 enemy ships destroyed, Minho reported. Another 300 heavily damaged. They are attempting to retreat past Jupiter. Taiho nodded. Let them go. Minho looked surprised. Sir, we could finish them. The Mars cannons can reach them even at that distance. I know, Taiho said, but I want some of them to survive. I want them to return to Nexura Prime and tell the Council what happened here. I want every species in the galaxy to know what we did today. He turned to look at the tactical display. The dots representing enemy ships were fading one by one as damaged vessels lost power and died. This is not about destroying an army, Taiho continued. This is about sending a message. Fear is a weapon too, Lieutenant. Sometimes the best way to win a war is to make sure the enemy never wants to fight again. Minho considered this. Then he nodded slowly, yes, sir. They watched as the survivors limped away. Of the 2,000 ships that had entered the solar system, fewer than 400 escaped. Of the 500,000 soldiers aboard those ships, none had ever touched Earth's surface. Fleet Commander Thara was rescued by a passing cruiser. She was unconscious when they found her, buried under debris in what remained of her bridge. When she woke, her first words were a question. Ow! How many did we lose? The medical officer looked uncomfortable. Over 1,600 ships, Commander. Roughly 400,000 personnel. Thera closed her eyes. She had conquered 100 worlds. She had crushed rebellions and destroyed civilizations. She had never lost a single battle until today. The Council must be told, she said weakly. These humans, they are not what we thought. They are not primitives. They are something else. Something worse. What do you mean, Commander? Thera opened her eyes. There was fear in them now. Real fear, of the kind she had never felt before. They knew we were coming. They prepared for us. Every rock, every moon, every piece of debris in their system was a weapon. They turned their entire home into a trap, a killing ground. They were waiting for us like hunters waiting for prey. She grabbed the medical officer's arm with desperate strength. Tell the Council. Tell them the truth. These humans are not afraid of us. They wanted us to come. They wanted to show us what they can do. And this was just the beginning. 3 weeks later, Thera stood before the Galaxy Council on Nexera Prime. She was still weak. Her body was covered in scars and burns, but her voice was steady as she delivered her report. When she finished, the Council was silent. Elder Bren of the Silith spoke first. I warned you, he said softly. I told you they were dangerous. Now 1,600 ships are gone. 400,000 of our soldiers are dead, and the humans have not lost a single vessel. He looked around the great hall. Perhaps now you will listen. Perhaps now you will understand what we are facing. These are not primitives. These are predators. And we have made them very, very angry. The Galaxy Council was in chaos. For the first time in 60,000 years, they had been defeated. Not by another great empire. Not by an ancient enemy returning from the darkness, but by a young species from a small blue planet that had barely learned to travel between stars. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, people whispered about the humans. They said Earth was a death trap. They said the humans had weapons that could not be stopped. They said anyone who went to that system would never return. The Council could not allow this. Their power depended on fear. If other species saw that the Council could be beaten, they might start to get ideas. Rebellions might begin. Wars might spread. The order that had held the galaxy together for 60,000 years might collapse. So the Council made a decision. They would assemble every warship, every soldier, every weapon in their entire territory. They would create the largest military force in galactic history. And they would crush the humans so completely that no one would ever dare to challenge the Council again. They called it the Grand Armada. 20,000 warships from 12 species, 12 billion soldiers armed with the most advanced weapons ever created. Enough firepower to destroy not just Earth, but every planet in their solar system. Fleet Commander Thera refused to lead it. She was still recovering from her wounds, but that was not the real reason. The truth was simple. She was afraid. She had looked into the darkness of human space and seen something that haunted her dreams. So the Council gave command to Admiral Keth of the Verax, a warrior who had never known defeat. Keth was young by Council standards, only 400 years old. He was arrogant and proud. He believed the first attack had failed only because of surprise. This time, he would be ready. While the Grand Armada gathered, humanity did not wait. General Sora Choi stood in a briefing room on Mars, looking at a holographic map of the galaxy. Around her were 30 soldiers in black combat armor. These were Earth's best. Special forces trained since childhood for impossible missions. The Kellick's homeworld, Sora said, pointing at a planet on the map. It is the heart of Council military power. Their shipyards build half the Council's warships. Their orbital defense network is the strongest in the galaxy. She touched a button, and the display zoomed in on the planet. Our spies have been gathering intelligence for months. We know their codes. We know their security patterns. We know exactly where their shield generators are located. One of the soldiers raised a hand. General, how do we get there? The Kellick system is 100 light years away. Even if we had a fast ship, it would take weeks. Sora smiled. We are not taking one of our ships. We are taking one of theirs. In orbit around Jupiter, a captured Morduth cruiser was being prepared for launch. Human engineers had spent months studying it, learning its systems, making it fly. Now it was ready. Sora led her team aboard. The ship jumped into hyperspace. Carrying 30 humans toward the heart of enemy territory, they arrived in the Kellick system 3 weeks later. The cruiser's Morduth identification codes got them past the outer patrols. The confused Kellick's commanders assumed it was a survivor from the Earth disaster. Returning home for repairs, no one suspected the truth until it's too late. Sora and her team infiltrated the orbital defense station. They moved like ghosts through the corridors, silent and deadly. Any guard who saw them died before they could raise an alarm. The shield generator. Control room was deep in the station's core. Sora planted explosive charges on every console, every power coupling, every backup system. When the charges detonated, the entire orbital defense network would go dark. How long do we have? One of her soldiers asked. 11 minutes, Sora replied. That is how long it will take them to bring the backup systems online. 11 minutes of vulnerability. She activated her communicator. This is General Choi to Earth Command. The package is in place. Execute on my signal. 50 light years away, a small Earth destroyer called the Han River received the message. It was hiding in the shadow of a dead moon, waiting for this moment. Captain Heian Kim sat in the command chair. He was only 30 years old, the youngest captain in Earth's fleet. He had volunteered for this mission knowing he might not return. All hands, he said, prepare for jump. We have one chance at this. Make it count. The Han River jumped into hyperspace. It emerged in the Kellick system exactly 11 minutes after Sora's charges exploded. The planet's shields were down. The defense stations were blind. Thousands of Kellic warships scrambled to respond, but they were confused and disorganized. Captain Heon did not hesitate. He deployed humanity's secret weapon. They called it the Genesis device. It was a small metal sphere, barely 2 meters across. Inside was a swarm of self-replicating nanomachines. Microscopic robots programmed with a simple instruction: consume all synthetic materials and reproduce. The sphere fell toward the Kellic's fleet. When it reached the nearest warship, it opened. The nanomachines spread like a disease. They ate through metal hulls and electronic systems. They devoured engines and weapons. They multiplied by the billions, then by the trillions, consuming everything they touched. Within 3 hours, the Kellic's fleet was dust. The nanomachines did not harm the planet. They were designed to target only ships and stations. The Kellic's people survived, but they would never fly again. Their entire space program, built over 10,000 years, was gone in a single afternoon. Captain Han watched the destruction from a safe distance. When it was over, he broadcast a message to the Kellics. This is Captain Heon Kim of the Earth Destroyer Han River. Your fleet is gone. Your stations are gone. You have been disarmed, but you have not been destroyed. This is a mercy. Remember it. Then the Han River jumped away, vanishing into hyperspace before any Council reinforcements could arrive. On Nixira Prime, the Council received the news in stunned silence. The Kellics had been one of their strongest members. Now they were nothing. Their representatives sat in the Council chamber with empty eyes, still unable to believe what had happened. Then humanity's message arrived. Ambassador Unipark appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Her face was calm, her voice steady. People of the Council, you were warned. You did not listen. The Kellics have been disarmed. Their world is intact. Their people live. But they will not threaten Earth again. She paused, letting the words sink in. We are not conquerors. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your resources. We want only to be left in peace. But understand this: every species that sends ships against Earth will suffer the same fate. Every fleet that crosses our borders will be destroyed. This is not a threat. It is a promise. Her eyes seemed to look directly into the souls of every council member. The Grand Armada is assembling. We know this. We are ready for it. But I am offering you one last chance. Disband your fleet. Return to your homes. Send ambassadors, not soldiers. And perhaps we can find a way forward that does not require more death. The message ended. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. Some species demanded immediate attack. Others wanted negotiation. A few quietly began pulling their ships from the Grand Armada. Admiral Keth stood before them, still confident. They are bluffing, he insisted. One attack does not change anything. We have 20,000 ships. They cannot stop us all. But Elder Bren shook his head. You are a fool, the old Silith said. They just destroyed an entire fleet without losing a single ship. They penetrated our most secure system and walked away untouched. And you think you can beat them with numbers? He stood, his ancient bones creaking. I am withdrawing the Silith from this war. I advise the rest of you to do the same. These humans are something we have never faced before. They do not fight like we do. They do not think like we do. And they will not stop until every ship we send is dust. He walked out of the chamber. Over the next 3 days, 7 more species withdrew from the Grand Armada. Then 2 more. Then all of them. The Council's great military alliance collapsed. Not because they were defeated in battle, but because they were too afraid to fight. On Earth, Admiral Taiho received the news. He sat in his office on the Indomitable, looking at the report on his screen. Ambassador Yuna entered without knocking. They are disbanding the Grand Armada. The Council wants to negotiate. Taiho nodded slowly. I know, then it is over. Taiho turned to look out the window. Earth hung in the darkness, blue and beautiful. No, he said. It is just beginning. The Council will want guarantees. They will want to understand what they are dealing with. Someone will have to explain to them exactly what kind of monsters they almost woke up. He turned back to Yuna. Prepare for a diplomatic mission to Nazira Prime. It is time to show them who we really are. 1 year had passed since the war. The galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. 12 ancient species, masters of 1,000 worlds, had been defeated by a single young civilization. Not through great battles, but through fear. The humans had proven that they could strike anywhere, destroy anything, disappear before anyone could respond. The council wanted answers. They wanted to understand. And so they sent the only member brave enough to face humanity directly. Elder Bren of the Silith traveled to Earth alone. His ship carried no weapons. His crew consisted only of himself. He had lived for 8,000 years and had seen more than any creature in the galaxy. But as his small vessel approached the blue planet, he felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear the humans could have destroyed him at any moment. Their weapons were everywhere, hidden in asteroids and moons and satellites. But they let him pass. They guided his ship to a place they called Luna, Earth's single natural moon. Admiral Taiho Kang was waiting for him in a transparent dome on the moon's surface. Earth hung above them, massive and beautiful. Its oceans were deep blue. Its continents were green and brown. Clouds drifted across its face like gentle dreams. Bren stepped out of his ship slowly. His old legs were weak, and the low gravity made him feel unstable. Taiho walked forward to meet him. "Elder Bren," Taiho said. "Thank you for coming." Bren looked at the human admiral. Taiho was old by human standards, with gray hair and lines on his face. But there was strength in his eyes, and something else. Something that Bren recognized from his many years of watching civilizations rise and fall. Patience. The patience of a predator who knows his prey cannot escape. "I had to come," Bren said. "The council is confused and frightened. They do not understand what happened. I hope to find answers here." Taiho nodded. "Ask your questions." They walked together toward the dome. The floor was made of clear material, and through it they could see the gray dust of the moon stretching toward distant mountains. It was quiet, peaceful, a strange place to discuss war. "Your species is young," Bren began. "Your technology is simple compared to ours. Your population is a fraction of council space. Your territory is a single system. By every measure we use to judge strength, you should be weak, and yet you defeated us. Not once, but twice. You destroyed fleets that should have crushed you. How is this possible?" Taiho considered the question for a long moment. Then he pointed toward Earth. "Do you see those continents?" he asked. "Every piece of land you are looking at has been fought over, conquered, lost, taken back, burned and rebuilt. Our species has been at war with itself since before we could write. We have invented 1,000 ways to kill each other, and 1,000 ways to survive." He turned to face Bren directly. "Your species evolved on a paradise world. The Silith have known peace for most of your existence. When you fight, it is an exception, a temporary state before returning to harmony." His voice grew harder. "Humans are different. We evolved in hell. Our planet is not kind. Our history is not gentle. Every step of our development was paid for in blood. We learned to hunt, and we became the greatest hunters. We learned to fight, and we became the deadliest warriors. We learned to survive, and we became impossible to kill." Bren listened in silence. Everything the human said matched what he had observed. But there was still something he did not understand. "But why?" Bren asked. "Why are you like this? What made you this way?" Taiho smiled, but there was no warmth in it, because we had no choice. On Earth, there are many kinds of animals. Creatures with teeth and claws and poison. Creatures that could kill us in seconds. But we became the masters. Do you know why? Because we learned to be more dangerous than anything else. We learned that the best way to survive is to make sure your enemies cannot." He walked closer to the transparent wall, looking out at the stars. "The council made a mistake. You saw our radio signals and assumed we were primitive. You saw our small territory and assumed we were weak. You never asked the important question. You never asked why a species capable of destroying itself 100 times over was still alive." He turned back to Bryn. The answer is simple. We are very, very good at surviving. And we are even better at making sure our enemies do not. Bryn was silent for a long time. He had feared this answer. He had suspected it from the beginning. But hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that frightened him deeply. What do you want? Bryn finally asked. You could have destroyed us. You could have burned our worlds and taken our territory. But you did not. Why? Tai-Ho reached into his uniform and pulled out a small data pad. He handed it to Bryn. This is the same offer we made at the beginning. A treaty of mutual respect. Equality. We do not want your territory. We do not want to rule your people. We simply want to be left alone. That is all we have ever wanted. Bryn looked at the data pad. The terms were simple. No aggression from either side. Free trade and communication. Mutual respect between equals. If you had agreed to this from the start, Bryn said slowly, all of this death could have been avoided. Tai-Ho nodded. Yes, then we are fools. Yes. Bryn closed his eyes. So much death. So much destruction. All because the Council could not accept that a young species might be their equal. And you, Bryn asked, what are you? Are you gods? Demons. Something we have never seen before? Tai-Ho shook his head. We are survivors. Nothing more. Nothing less. We did what we had to do to protect our home. If you had left us alone, none of this would have happened. But you came to our world with threats and demands. You tried to take our freedom, and we showed you what happens when you try to take something from humanity. Bryn nodded slowly. Then he bowed his head, a gesture of respect among his people. I will recommend the Council accept your terms. The war is over. He turned to leave, then stopped. One last question. If I may, Tai-Ho waited. Do you regret it? The death. The destruction. The fear you have spread across the galaxy? Tai-Ho was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. I regret that it was necessary. I wish the Council had listened to our first warning. I wish no one had to die. But I do not regret protecting my people. I would do it again. 1,000 times if needed. Bryn nodded. He understood. In a way, he had always understood. This was the difference between the Council and humanity. The Council fought to maintain power. Humans fought to survive. And there was no force in the galaxy more dangerous than a creature fighting for its life. You are monsters, Bryn said quietly. But I understand now. You are the monsters we created. He walked back to his ship. Tai-Ho watched him go. Ambassador Unipark stepped out of the shadows. She had been listening to the entire conversation. He is right, you know, she said. We are monsters. Tai-Ho shook his head. No, we are survivors. The galaxy will learn the difference. Or they will learn to run. 1 month later, the treaty was signed. Humanity joined the galactic community not as subjects, but as equals. The Council species watched these strange, violent creatures with a mixture of fear and fascination. In the years that followed, humanity expanded carefully. They traded. They explored. They built alliances with other young species who had suffered under Council rule. They even saved a few civilizations from extinction, proving that they could protect as well as destroy. But the old Council species never forgot the lesson Earth had taught them. In their histories, they recorded what had happened. They wrote about the war, about the defeat, about the humans who had humbled the galaxy's ancient masters. And at the end of every account, they wrote the same warning. Some prey bites back. Some hunters become the hunted. And some monsters are better left undisturbed. Humanity read these histories and smiled. They knew the truth. They had never wanted to be monsters. They had never wanted to fight. All they had ever wanted was a home, a family, a chance to look up at the stars in peace. But they had learned long ago that peace is not given. It is taken. And they were very, very good at taking what they needed. The galaxy was quiet now. The wars had ended. The threats had faded. But somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity's children were building new ships, new weapons, new defenses, because they knew the truth that the council had finally learned. Peace is just another word for the time between wars, and when the next war came, humanity would be ready. They always were.